Internet, what is up? Happy Monday. Well, we've got episode 61 on tap, but before that, let's get the business portion out of the way. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HoloSun. Just kidding. Don't buy Chinese-made crap. People that is made and manufactured by the Chinese Communist Party. We don't buy it, and neither should you. Be a good red-blooded American. Support American companies like Reptilia Core. Reptilia Core, we're happy to have them on board as a podcasting sponsor. And we're going to be doing lots of cool stuff with them. Lots of fun things going into 24 with Reptilia. So if you haven't heard of Reptilia, which you probably haven't because they have largely been a design house for weapons accessories for all the little secret squirrels that run around at SOCOM and do great things for this country. So they are recently making a big commercial push. So if you haven't heard from them, don't feel bad, but go check them out at Reptilia Core. They make the famous AUS mount, which is pretty much become the standard for mounts for all things for special operators. So they're for optics mounts, and they make a wide variety: 30 millimeter diameter range, 34 millimeter diameter range. They got the 170 height, they got the 156 height, and then they also have ROF mounts, so you can piggyback all your red dots on top of your magnified optics. They make saddle mounts for shotguns. They make amazing pistol grips. They've got this new butt stock called the Recce stock, and I like it. It's actually a really cool stock. I've recommended it to a couple friends. They love it. So they make really good weapons accessory. If you've got a 1301 and you need a red dot on your Beretta 1301 shotgun, they make a saddle mount, and also make saddle mounts for the Elcan Spectre, which I have one, and I can't wait to get my hands on their saddle mount for the Acro so I can piggyback my Acro on top of my Spectre Elcan. And if right now I'm speaking Arabic to you and you have no clue what I'm talking about, go check out reptiliacore.com and on the gram at reptiliacore. All right, let's get into it. We got our man, Todd Hodnett, back for part 2, episode 61 of the Lone Element Podcast. Enjoy.
Things are getting tougher when you can't get the top off the bottom of the barrel. Wide open, roar my future now. Looking fucking new. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know nothing. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know.
Jumping into ballistics, like what are you seeing about, or what's your favorite bullet right now that you guys are shooting, and where do you think the future of ballistics is going with, because it seems like there's a lot of research going on right now and people are more open than they have ever been, especially in the government space, with exploring like new rounds. So you're
me and Kobe, for extreme long range stuff, we love the 7mm 300 shooting the 190 grain burgers, super high BC, really good bullets. Really good question, but I'm going to take it in a direction that you may not be ready for. BCSD variations per bullet. We didn't know what this stuff was. All right, so we just thought when you miss it 1,200 meters, you suck.
Yeah.
All right, so and then at first it's like, well, let's get the chronograph out. Let's see what our extreme spread is, what our standard deviation is. Yeah. So are we got that controlled, and then all of a sudden you shoot and you're really good all the way up to 1,000. You hit 1,500 and you're kind of all over the place, and we think, He's okay at 12, but he's, it's not really good. That's why we don't test at those distances. When I say test, when we're doing the government stuff. So when we started shooting through Doppler a whole bunch, we learned that BCSD variations really determines the math of what you're capable of. So when Brian and them shoot the 2 mile stuff, they're running SDs of 4. All right, if they go over 5, it's not even competition ammo. All right, so, but nowadays we have the equipment to load to that. But if you look at the 245 grain burger, 30 cal that you might use in a 300 Norma, it has less than 0.5% BCSD variation. So you want to pick a bullet out that has not more than one. There may be an objective that may allow it to go maybe up to 1.5, maybe 2, just to be able to get some bullets in. But that limits your capability on groups. You can look at the WES program and you can have groups that just blow up just from that. We've shot bullets, we won't name them, with 4%. So BCSD variation. So that there's no mathematical capable way of that bullet hitting anything at distance.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we would normally attribute it to, of like 160 feet per second spread for extreme spread. So it's like it shoots good out to about 400 and it just blows up, has flyers. Same problem with BCSD variation. So back to what she was talking about, the 6 arc's really coming on strong. Not because it's the big next new wave generation laser or whatever. It's 3.8 ballistics and a 5.56 platform. Good. I like it. It's not next gen anything other than it gives the guys more punch, more capability, which I'm not knocking it. It's an excellent round, and I really think all the military will move to it in the next 5 years as we life cycle replace stuff. Then you move into 6.5 Creed. That was something that obviously, so Jimmy Sloan pulled up to me at SHOT Show years ago, and he had the 300 Norma case. All right, and he handed it to me, and there was another guy with me. I can't mention his name. And I said, "Can I borrow this, Jimmy?" Jimmy's in a wheelchair. He designed the bullet. So I run down to Burger, and they had the 230, and I grabbed a bullet and run off, and everybody's laughing. So I run over to Surgeon, and I said, "Hey," I stuck it in the case, said, "Can you build this for me?" He said, "Todd, we need a reamer." I said, "Hang on." I run over to Dave Kiff, and I said, "Hey, can you build this?" He laughed, and he measured, did some stuff. He said, "Where do you want it shipped?" I said, "Ship it to Surgeon." So I run back by Surgeon, and I said, "Hey, you're getting the reamer from Kiff." I said, "I want an 8 twist." And my buddy said, I want a 9 twist. And I run back over, dropped the bullet, and said thanks, and took off. So I had number 2 ever made. And so I was huge because Jimmy had number 1. I was a big proponent of it. It gave us that exceptional long-range capability, high BC bullets. Even though I was big fan of 338 Lapua, it doesn't give us the same capability. Much more recoil, lower velocities. And even the BCs, I think the 250 grains like a 645 BC, I think. And so we're jumping up to with the 230s. Oh crap! I think 230s around a 7.5 BC. C-Dub, is that right? 230 Burger bullet BC 7.54. Yeah. So I mean, we got a full another point. Plus, I'm shooting 30-50 muzzle velocity, and the 338's only 29.50 shooting that 250 grains. So they jumped to the 300 grainers, better BC, but now the velocity's horrible. I mean, they're shooting sub 2700s a lot of times. So capability, like I said, it's blowing through the roof. Me and Kobe jump into the 190 grains, sticking it in the 300 Norma case, and now I'm pushing it 3300 with the 7.55. So it is off the charts.
So you got velocity and BC that are screaming.
Yeah, that's screaming. Now, mine's barrel burner. Kobe backed his back down because he is one of those awesome titanium-proof, hunting rifles, and he didn't want to run it, so he's shooting at 3,000.
I mean, well, those things aren't cheap, are they, Colby?
But they're phenomenal, and that's a good point to talk about for real quick to kind of get into it. And if we have to, we can go a little bit long. Kobe can go down and take care of what we got to, and we can even extend this till a little bit later this evening. After I take care of another deal. But a lot of guys ask us all the time, it's like, I want to buy a gun, I want to buy a scope. What should I buy? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And so one guy said, I'm going to buy a new gun. Should I get a 300 Blackout or should I get a 300 Norma? And I'm like, do you want a pistol or you want a rifle?
Right.
So
use case.
Yeah, 300 Blackout replaces MP5. It is not a good long range. I've had so many guys come through my school and talk about how many animals they shot and lost shooting a 300 Blackout. So it has the only reason it has a place at the table, it functions in subsonic. Period. Yeah. Done.
Well, I mean, there was a huge amount of confusion with that round on the commercial side because people didn't understand. Your average Joe Hunter sees this new caliber hit the market. He's interested in it, didn't understand what it was developed for, which was shooting subsonic. That was the whole purpose of that round, was to shoot subsonic.
And function.
Yeah. And so didn't understand that. And I remember one year I ran across this. I was out antelope hunting, and I ran across this guy, and he was, he had this antelope that he was dragging up, putting in his truck, and it was all bloated and it sat out for a day, and he was trying to salvage what he could off of it. And I, stopped to help him load it because he was an older fellow. I stopped and helped him load it in his truck, and he was just had a case. He was pissed off, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, tried that new 300 black rounds, a bunch of bullshit, goddamn hype." And I'm like, "Well, how far away did you shoot him?" And he goes, "Oh, well, the wind was blowing, and I think I shot him at 210 yards." I'm like, "Well, let me see your bullet. What kind of bullet you shooting?" He was shooting a sub, and then the wind blew it off and hit it back, in the guts, and it ran away. And then he got on his four-wheeler and he lost it, and then found it, and there was a lot of confusion about what that bullet was for and what it could do. And then that's when I got curious about that bullet, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what this can do." And so I hunted that whole next season with the 300 black, and you're absolutely right. It's not a great round for hunting, but good shot placement, and I was killing I killed an antelope at 370.
Yeah.
But I was shooting Barnes TAC TX 110s.
Excellent. Great bullets.
Yeah, and then killed an elk. And that was the big test. I was like, oh, but I shot him at 90 yards. I stalked in on him and shot him at 90 yards. So not a huge, not a huge long shot.
Yeah.
But the one that surprised me the most is I shot an antelope at 400 with the Barnes TAC TX and just dropped him like a bad habit. And so.
And it is a good caliber for what it was made for, but obviously it wasn't made for that, you're doing with it. But the 6.5 replacement into the military is absolutely 100% hit probabilities through the roof. Not a fan at all of the 6.8.
Yeah.
Recoil's like horrible. They push the muzzle velocity up to push through body armor. They're giving it to kids that don't get the training to learn how to shoot.
Yep.
And so it's not – there's some avenues that we're going down, in my opinion, that are wrong.
Yeah.
The 300 Norma, Kevin came to the house and we sat down. We wrote the requirement on that thing, and I mean from the butt pad, the durometer, or the rubber, all the way through twist rates. And they said, well, you can't tell them what twist rate that they have to come with. And Kevin said, yes, we can.
Yeah.
So it was like, we know this works. We got a recipe for success. And in my twist rate studies that we did for part of the government or part of the military, basically, you got the Green Hill formula and the Miller formula. So the Green Hill formula came out in the mid-1800s, and the Miller formula came out, I think, in the 1980s, just putting Band-Aids on the Green Hill formula and getting it up to speed with the new style bullets that we're shooting.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that I looked at and was like, man, this is super antiquated. There's a lot of bullets that, like the 168, Sierra, probably #1 bullet for law enforcement, used here in the United States. It will flip over and go backwards in a 12 twist once it hits red sonic.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I was shooting it at a mile, and you may only find 1 or 2 bullets on the side of the mountain when you're shooting the 168 out of a box. And I could take it and put it in an 8 twist, a little 14.5-inch barrel, and I could hit the target all the time. Yeah. And if when I was missing, it's just barely right, barely left. And I'd see every shot. So we could keep the stability because we're imparting more twists or maintaining more gyroscopic stability or dynamic stability. So it's one of those things that we fixed a lot of that stuff. The bullets coming out nowadays are insane. I don't know how much better we're going to get because now we're restricted by magazine length. So we got long bullets, great BCs. I think our next real test is going to be finding and researching that BCSD variation and exposing it. Now, the companies ain't going to like it. Because the companies are going to be like, but how do you get this and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's part of the math. It's something real, but it has to be very consistent in the manufacturing to have this BCSD variation on the bullet. So it's I think that's our next step is controlling, when I say controlling, allowing that information to be out there. Of course, when we gather it with Brian, because Brian does design the burgers or burger bullets, we can't push out what other companies are. It just looks bad.
Yeah.
So it's something that we don't even talk about. The government brings that to us, and we test them and go, yep, that's this. But it's not. They're there. They see it. So we do something called Science Week, and in Science Week, we test a lot of things, a lot of theories, and put science to it. So initially, it was me and a whole bunch of my friends. I would name them if I asked them permission. But when I say a whole bunch of my friends, is about 4 to 5 of us that started it. And then we started seeing some information that the military needed to know. Yeah. And we were just trying to prove some old school theories for long distance stuff was wrong. And we was putting science to it. So we had had the capacity of the Doppler there to do testing. And so it was like, all right, hey guys, we can't call the military, or I can't even teach in the military what we just saw, because it looks like you're slamming a company. Yeah. And so we said, fine, bring the G8. So Warcom, SOCOM, they brought their buyers in, and we know those entities, and they came in and they sat down. Now they see it. We ain't got to tell them. They go in the AB lab and look and go, all right, as it prints out, they can take a picture of it and see it. We ain't got to tell them a thing. It's like, then they started bringing ammo to us, and I was like, can you test this? Can you test this? Can you test this? So we're able to see the BCSD variations. We're able to see all kinds of stuff, and to get those CDMs, and that's another great point. I wish we had 2 more hours. The PDMs that's in the ballistic engine, I don't use them. I mean, if you look at the 7mm 300 Norma, that 190, the PDM my PDM is the CDM because it's the first time it's ever shot through a Doppler. So that is, you would think I would use it. I use a CDM. Of course, the same thing because I've got mine. But I shoot all my guns through the Doppler every year.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at something with different ammo, I have tons of PDMs that I could go into. I never use them. I use a CDM, and I trim my velocity, and I'm gone. And the reason I true velocity instead of truing drag or truing out your BC is the variability is on velocity. So if I gave you a box of ammo and I gave you another box of ammo, you shot this on a certain day, what's going to change more, the BC or the muzzle velocity? All right, we talked about MV temp tables that I created. That was another deal that I created and put in A-Trag, and then I moved it. That was something nobody ever looked at. Was what temperature it is today, ambient temperature, and what your velocity is based on your temp sensitivity of that powder. Well,
Right.
I built scales, and Colby came up with slope to where you can plug it in real fast. It's phenomenal. Works better than having the data points and having to do what I used to do. So when you look at the variability of what's going on, it's the velocity that's going to change. And everybody goes, well, I've got the new Garmin. It's awesome. And it is. It's probably the best new tool out on the floor today. And
You're talking about the Chrono.
the Chrono,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah, it's on my list to pick one of those up.
Yeah, so I even shot it with a shotgun all the way back to 100 yards, shooting over top with 7.5 shot, and it picks it up every time.
Oh, good.
It's insane. Yeah. And I've got Labs, Magnetos, Infinition, $500,000, and then Bullet Seeker, and all of them were good. The Garmin kills it.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's probably running selling stock right now, and a lot of the other companies just trying to save themselves and they should.
Yeah.
The Garmin's phenomenal. It's easy to use, and I'm not pushing their product other than when we find something that's phenomenal, I'm going to tell the world because I don't want you to waste your money. And when we've been tested it against the Infinition Doppler, and it's spot on. But long-range shooting has developed from where I came into the military 20 years ago and started teaching a little over 20 now. What we were doing, shooting dope, shooting second focal plane, shooting mil-dot reticles, it has come, and the bullets. So the way that we bought stuff back, the way that they bought stuff back then was whatever they're winning competitions with, that was the bullet that they was going to buy. So when we looked at the 300 Norma for the ASR, we didn't go to competition and go, hey, what's winning? So what we did was we went intentions on target. Which bullet will perform the best for military, doing what they want it to do. We didn't do this with the PSR. The PSR was horrible.
Right.
All right. So the PSR, they said, hey, bring your kit. Whoever wins, we're going to buy ammo from you too. And it's like, dude, it may be great competition ammo, but it may suck on tissue. And so that thing eventually died off like it should have. And not because the gun wasn't good. I've got one of the very first Remington MSRs at the house because they come out and they said, would you test it for us? And I said, sure. I said, but the gun ain't going home. And they laughed and they said, okay. And I was joking, but I kept the gun. So it was a phenomenal gun. But when it went in production, they had some problems. So mine's kind of a one-off deal. And then you get into the newer weapon systems, the MRAD. Personally, Night Force has a scope that has all the data inside of it. Have you seen one of those yet?
Well, I was going to ask you how you feel about the in terms of like where gear proliferation and technology are going into.
Yep.
The XM157 that they're playing with, that Vortex scope that's got like the laser rangefinder module in it.
Yeah,
it's got all the.
And I haven't played with that one. The Night Force and other companies that I won't name because I didn't ask permission of them. And I know the Night Force boys, they can beat me over the head when I get out of here. But looking at that Night Force scope, the one that has all the data scope, it is insane. It is, and now we refer it to as we're not getting better in the next 10 years.
Does that Night Force have the similar? It's got the similar or same capabilities as what I'm talking about, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so you put your laser, whatever military laser system you got up on top of your Raptor or your Mars, whatever. It lasers, it's plugged in. It gives you all your data inside. You can push wind into it. You got to understand, nobody's reading wind, right?
Yeah, no.
So I've been in the Wind Sense program since 2008. All the military government entities coming out to the house. We have the capability with Wind Sense of reading wind right now. It is not talking to any scope out there on the planet currently. I'm sure the guy that developed it has that process built into it to where we can, but it is now not a government program. It's being transitioned over, and that's why I really can't get into it because I don't know what I could and shouldn't say. it's that capability is there. You'll hear a lot of scope companies go like, yeah, we can read wind and it'll show it in the scope. I'm like, a couple of my buddies shot show maybe a year or two ago. It was out on range day, and they picked it up and they said, oh, that doesn't have a battery in it. And the guy turned around, and my buddy grabbed a 123 and put it in it and picked it up. And the guy turned around and it's like, what are you doing? And he said, I had a battery. He said, oh, no, it's just a demo. He took the battery out. He can't read wind. So we know where the capability is there. But the scope technology is phenomenal. You're not going to get better than that data scope from Night Force.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that I don't know with the MRAD. And we'll circle back around and talk about for the hunting market, for these guys, what they ought to be looking at. I've got 20 MRADs at the house for school. I've got surgeons. I've got custom rifles.
Yeah, you were shooting surgeons in an AI chassis in 07.
Yep.
With putting 338 through it.
Yep.
So now you've got MRADs.
I got all the MRADs, and I'm selling all my surgeons, and I love the old surgeons. It's not anything against the surgeons not being capable.
They were a great rifle.
They're a great rifle. Yeah. They've throughout all the selling of the company and the people leaving, they're not the quality, in my opinion, that they were way back. Yeah. So I don't shoot them anymore because I have the MRADs. Now I'm not going to hunt with the MRAD, but I did. And shooting long range stuff like we do at home where we're shooting 2,000 plus. Big heavy gun, I need it for the recoil manages fine. I was telling you, I carried it up on a elk hunt outside of Cody, Wyoming, 23-mile horse ride back in. I get up on top of this mountain, hiked up. We're going to sleep. It's noon. Elk ain't coming out till 4. I lay down, put my rifle down. Sunny spot over here, go lay down. And I'm like, all right, hey, I'm going to take a nap. You're getting up every morning 3:30. So I'm laying there taking a nap. My guide, I saw him sleeping around the corner. And all of a sudden, I get in deep sleep, and I hear, "Rrr." And I'm like, oh, crap. So, and then he's like, "Rrr." And I'm like, I knew it was that way, and I knew what it was. So I just lunged for my rifle. When I lunged for my rifle, that alerted her. She come up downwind, so she knew he was there. But I think when I moved really fast, which probably wasn't very fast at my age, when I moved like a wounded animal, probably to her, she charged. So I grabbed my Barrett, and I turn around and I'm swinging it into her, yelling to try to get her to slow down. She was 17 yards away, and she cleared the rock at 7 yards. It was a boulder about the size of this table, and my gun went off. Click. I didn't have a chamber or a round chambered in it. But swinging it into her, I pulled my bicep loose. And so trying to swing it into her. And it is all good. Chambered another round real fast. And this is something for people to notice. The MRAD has a sleeve that the bolt rides in, and you cannot bind it up. You can't try to bind it up. So with a lot of long actions, if you push at a 30-degree angle out and it's forward at the same time, it'll bind.
It'll bind, yeah.
And so she'd have probably ate me if I was shooting something different at the time because it would have bound up. She ended up, we had to stare her off at about 3 steps for a little bit, and I was fixing to kill her, and I thought, she's going to kill me. This 300 Norma's not going to kill her instantly, probably. So
you're going to get
it's not going to be good. So she ended up decided to go away. I guess my guardian angel behind me scared her, and she ran up the hill, and they took off, and they just gone. So everything worked out. But I don't
know if they told you, but we got grizzlies in Wyoming.
Oh yeah, yeah, seen them first. So yeah, there's tons. I saw more grizzly than I did elk on that trip. So people don't have. We talked about custom rifles. People don't have to buy custom rifles nowadays. They can, and they're great. I'm not knocking them. You get into some old brands and new brands. Franco Beretta flew me over to Finland to design the M110 for him. So I was shooting Steer G42s, as you remember. So he asked me to come over and do a redesign. And so I designed the M10 for him with Uso and Sammy. Uso and Sammy, and great guys back there at the factory. And so it's a great weapon system. When I walked in to the factory, I saw all these great parts and these really nice, blued parts. And I said, okay, what's this? They said Tika. And I said, what's this? They said Sako. And I didn't know what Tika was. And so I said, all right, what's Tika? Is it like gray? And they said, no, it's Tika. And I said, silver. There's a communication problem going on. And he said, no. And so he carries me around the corner and big sign Tika, all these finished nice rifles. I've never shot a Tika that wasn't a hammer. They are not expensive.
Yeah, it's one of his favorite rifles.
They are awesome. Yeah. And I had a friend call me up a couple of Thanksgivings ago, and he said, "Hey, Todd, I got a problem. I know it's Thanksgiving. If you could kind of just point me in the right direction, kind of help me out." He said, "I'll let you go." And he's a shotgun shooting buddy of mine. Really didn't know the guy. So I said, "Yeah, what's the deal?" He said, "I can't get my Bagheera sighted in." And I said, "What scope do you have?" Because you always blame the scope. And he said, "Well, it's a 9.4 Tac RFI 25." I said, "Well, it ain't the scope."
Nope.
So I said, "Why don't you come out, meet me? It's after lunch." I said, "I need to get out of the house anyway and walk around. I ate way too much." And he said, "No, it's Thanksgiving, man." I said, "I'm probably going to go shoot by myself. So come on out." He said, "Oh, if you're going, I'll go." I wasn't probably going anyway. So, but he came out, and I laid down. I never shot a Bagheera in my life. This is 6.5. Jumped on the gun, figured out the problem real quick was the mount, and got everything fixed, got it zeroed, shot a group, and honestly, it was probably a third of a minute of angle group. It was phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "What do you have in this gun?" And cost-wise, he said, "The gun about $800." I said, "You want to sell it? I'll give you $9." And he laughed. He said, "No, I want to keep it." Said, "I'll give you $1,000." And he said, he laughed. "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious. You can keep your scope. I got 40 of those back at the house just like it." And he said, "No," he said, "I really want to keep it." He said, "I'm kind of excited about the gun." He just bought it. I've never shot a bad 6.5 Bagheera. So we haven't played around a lot with their other stuff, but I will say the Bagheera 6.5 guns are very good. The Tikka, we've shot everything across the board. I don't think there's a better buy on the floor for the dollar than the Tikka. If you want to spend a little bit more and get lots of the bells and whistles, the LaRue has a Siete now. I've got 20 of those in school.
Yeah.
Insane guns. They are really good. Now, again, they're probably three times the price. But the one thing guys don't skip on, please, and I was that guy forever because I grew up poor, cheap, dirt farmer. Don't skip on your scope.
No.
So your scope is your number. That is your piece that gets you between you and the target, between you and the gun. If you don't have good optics,
The gun's only as good as the glass.
yeah. So you can buy a $800 Tikka and put a $2,200. The NX8s are phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. So you can put a $2,200. Yeah. It's you just
Well,
pay
that's what he
twice
did.
as
He's
much.
got Cato. What do you got that? You bought that Tikka that and how much was it? Yeah, and what? How much was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you threw it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
And then as long as you put a good scope on it, and I try to tell everybody, they have opinions about scopes, so there's not a lot of deep knowledge. So I have a friend that works for, can't probably say that. He's a doctor of optics. We have lots of long discussions about the insides. And I've worked with a lot of different scope companies and made friends with the engineers and stuff. The scope is the most important piece. Now, once you get out to long range, that thing changes a little bit. Now it's ammo. So you have to have ammo to do the long range stuff. And we can talk more about that of why we don't test the 300 Norma at 1500. We shoot it at 100 and it passes the test there because when you get to 1500, you're testing ammo. You're not testing the gun anymore.
Right.
If you can shoot a minute at 100 and shoot a minute at 1,000 and shoot a minute at a mile, but it's all based on ammo and BCSD variations. But back then, we didn't have that capability of knowing with the Doppler. So I try to tell guys, please be educated. Spend as much money as you can spend on, and I don't want to call the Tikka a cheap rifle, affordable rifle. Spend as much money as you can spend on your scope and then buy a nice affordable rifle like the Tikka, and I would full 100% back the Tikka. You can spend a little bit more money and get a Siete. You get the folder, you get the whole takedown deal, fixing a nice little box. It's cool. But today long range is not that expensive like it used to be.
Let me ask you. I have a question for you. That it's something that I run into constantly. Is I'm going to let him call it. I'm going to let him call
All right, he's out of tape.
Are you? Ammo.
Last question.
Yeah, ammo picks the gun.
Yep.
Have you? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've seen guns that just you put a certain type of ammo in it, and it's a match grade ammo, and the gun hates it, and you put another match grade ammo in it, and it just
there can be a lot that needs to be on an XR. Okay. And I want to talk about ball gauging, something that we found.
Yeah.
Ball gauging barrels to determine quality of the barrel, barrel life.
Yeah.
So this is something, and I know exactly where you're going. It's like you have to feed it what it likes.
Yep.
All right. But, again, that's usually based on the bullet's manufacturing capability of not being consistent.
Okay.
So if all bullets are equal quality, it's going to like them all equally.
Yeah.
All right. So now that's only shooting groups at 100 maybe. Shooting groups at distance, it gets all into SDs and BCSD variations. SD's on muzzle velocity
Right.
and BCSD variations, and that's what everything boils
Okay.
down to there. So, but yeah, there is some guns that, I see this all the time. People call me up and they go, "Hey, Todd, I bought this gun that you said it was really good, but it shoots horrible." And I'm like, "Well, what are
ammo?
you shooting?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, there's a case for sale at Walmart. It was really good price." I'm like, "Dude,
No.
yeah, stop.
Yeah.
Get a box of Federal 175 and shoot through it. All right, that's a good baseline.
Yeah.
All right, go get some Burger 6.5 ammo.
Yeah.
The 140. I like the 130 grainers personally more than the 140, just for me. We can go more into that later, but it's one of those things that you're right. You need to understand why, though, and a lot of times it's manufacturing capability that gives that bullet to bullet choice. And a lot of times people shoot Remington, then they shoot Hornady, then they shoot Burger, and one may be perfect out of the gun. A lot of the Hornady shoots really good, out of certain weapon systems. You shoot in groups at 100. And then Federal is phenomenal ammo. You can't beat it. Just doesn't have quite the BCs, but that Burger does. But then you look at Barnes, one of the best killing bullets out there, period. But doesn't have high BCs for extended long range. So when we went in the 300 Norma, the ASR test, we picked based off BC, hit probability. Then we took the top 5 and we went to gelatin. And we let the winner of the gelatin out of the top 5 because we have to have hit probability, because if you have the best expansion bullet in the world and it never hits anything, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
So you have to have the hit probability through BC first. All right, we'll wrap this up and maybe come back after I go down and do that deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good?
Okay, cool. Okay, we're back.
All right, cool.
Nice little break. Had to go do some meetings and
get some stuff done while
Yeah.
we're here, pay bills.
Okay, so I think where we left off is we were talking about like how how sometimes the ammo picks the gun.
It really does, and a lot of times I tell the guys they'll buy the same gun and they said, my buddy has one, it's awesome, I got one, and it sucks. And I'm like, all right, what sucks about it? They say it won't shoot good groups, and then it's always an ammo deal or a scope deal. And there's one of the biggest things that we see. Most of the ammo, when you're talking shooting close range out to 500.
Yeah.
Most of it's very capable, unless you're getting bargain basement kind of stuff. But most of the time, if you're dealing with quality ammunition, it's probably going to work out pretty well with the weapon system. What we do see is guys that are buying inferior scopes, trying to save a little money. And so people need to really understand, you don't have to be in a custom gun market like we talked about earlier to have quality weapon systems. They may not be up to speed with twist rates. All that stuff's coming. We've been working with the military for years and years on building that up. That's why we're at 7.5 twist on 6.5s now. And we can go into this real quick as we go through these points. Used to the military come to me and say, "Hey, what kind of twist rate do we need for this?" And I would do a whole bunch of tests and tell them what my results were. They would have me pick it for whatever reason, and I would tell them what I thought we needed to do at the time, but I wasn't through with the test, but we had to move forward. And so they would go ahead and run with that twist rate. Now, it was way faster than the Greenhill formula or the Miller formula, kind of based on where we left off a while ago. But the Miller formula gives you a stability factor of 2 in transonic or in supersonic. So it's not potentially going to stabilize every bullet as it goes into transonic into subsonic. So you can still have all the stability issues after that point. With Greenhill formula or Miller formula, the problem is all the people downstairs or all the gun makers, they don't want to jump out and do anything outside the norm. And when I say the norm, since the 1800s, so it's kind of standard deal, stability factor 2. We're running stability factor 4 now, in plus. So, but now we actually just put it on Doppler. So when we did the 6.5 Creed for the military and we were actually going through the same process, selecting twist rates, we go in and I say, okay, the standard is an 8 for a 6.5 right now. So we're going to shoot an 8 and then we're going to shoot a 7. Well, 7 was better. And Brownlet said, hey, we need to test 7.5. So he shot a 7.5. Well, the 7.5 or 7.5 actually had less drag than the 7 twist. So the Doppler selected the twist rate. And that's why all the military runs a 7.5 twist, or 1 in 7.5. So, and for those that may not understand, that's basically 1 full revolution in 7.5 inches of barrel. All right, and so a lot of people think a 10 twist is faster than 7.5, and it's actually the opposite.
It's the opposite, yeah.
It's just a common mistake people make. But it's the biggest problem we have most of the time when people think they have a gun problem. It's an optic problem, and their parallax is off or their clicks are off. They don't return to zero, and if you're dialing,
Don't level the optic.
There's so much, and we could. I mean, we've got a little bit to play with right
Yeah.
now in time, but there is so much on setting up an optic that is. I'm trying to watch my language. Complete bullshit.
Only if you want to. This is the internet. We can say whatever we want.
So there is so much false crap put out on
Yeah.
the internet on how to set up an optic properly.
Yeah.
And me and Colby, I mean, even if we're going out and shooting, deer at 2,000 meters and I got a brand new scope that I want to test, I'll slap it on the weapon system in my house, get the adjustment set properly for my eye relief, and I'll throw it up and plumb bob it on a string and turn my bubble level to where it says level now, tighten it up. And my guns, my personal guns that I shoot for long range, because we don't always do this in class because you're breaking the rules, and I don't want to start an argument with a whole bunch of my students. Now I do, because I don't care anymore. So they should know me by now to know what I teach. But back in the day, I kind of made sure everything was, pretty much level with the weapon system. I knew it didn't need to be, but I would do it so I didn't have problems. So then the guys saw my guns and my weapon system. Your pocket, we're videoing so they can see this. Your pocket is here. It's not straight up and down.
Yeah.
So if you put it in your pocket and under recoil, it's going to come straight back and fall straight back down. But if you actually set it straight up and down, now you have, your pack here touching the bottom left corner of your recoil pad, and upright your delt, and it's path of least resistance. So under recoil, not only do you have the twist of the weapon system due to your, or torque in your system due to twist rate, but the gun's going to torque going into your pocket. So when that happens, it's going to pull you off. But if you actually set it up there first, pull into your pocket, load your bipod slightly, and we'll talk about that in a minute. When you break that shot, it's going to come straight back and fall straight back down on target. So all my guns are not, all my scopes are not level to my weapon system. They're level to the world. And by doing that, I get it set up to where it fits right in my body. And we're not talking a crazy amount of torque.
Right.
We're just talking, or not torque, cant. So we're talking a little bit of cant in the stock to where it's set up here. Obviously, if you have a butt stock that's adjustable, you can do that.
Yep.
The gun can be set up however. And then once you set up the scope, put it on plumb bob, and everything looks good, then you just turn your level to where now it's level with the world, and it doesn't matter where you're at, you're level and you're good. And so we had some SEALs out at the place one day, and this kid said, I'm going through the scope mountain class, and he starts canting his scope more and more and more. So the gun's going way out here and like this. I said, all right, we can't go too far with this.
Yeah, can't get too crazy, yeah.
And he said, can I test it? And I said, absolutely. Knowledge is knowledge. Put it on, tighten it up. He shot out to a mile. He had no problem. He's the second best shooter of the whole group all week long with this crazy canted weapon system.
Oh,
And so I was like, all right, I would have never done it that much. And he said, I wouldn't either because he's actually out here across now. But I wanted to see. And I said, yeah, that's awesome because we tested it now. So the guys that think they know more or want to put down what we teach, they'll go like, well, you can't do that because this, you're going to be off because now it's your crosshairs here and your bore's over here and it's crossing. Again, they're doing this where in reality it's over here.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not over here cutting across. So it's one of those things that people just want to be negative about what somebody else is teaching. So, but test it. My deal to the guys is, hey, if you got any question, if you hear anything about, well, you can't do that, do it right now. Go test it. Then you have knowledge of where you can do it or where you can't do it. So we created that bubble level that has, a line every 2.5 degrees of cant, and then we had to give you the math of figuring out. So you don't have to shoot level. You can even shoot with cant if you know what the cant is.
Yeah.
So
one of my favorite things to do is to challenge paradigms.
Absolutely, that's us. That's us.
I do it with I've done it in CQB for years. Like I've been teaching one-man room clears since 2004.
Yeah.
And people were like, never room clear with one man. But in combat, like shit happens and you are clearing one man a lot, especially when geometry is super complex. So my thing was like, okay, well, the training doctrine says don't do it. But if I do it and I get proficient at it, then I'm prepared for it. Like, okay, cool. Rule of thumb, always, 2 guys in a room. But if you can't, you better be prepared to do that and know how to do it, or you're gonna set yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
So I love to challenge paradigms and be like, okay, cool. This is what the status quo says. Let's test it and let's push the limits on it and let's try some new hypotheses around it and see what the art of the possible is.
Yeah, and back I can remember when I went in to start teaching, and I agree with you 100%. And back to the bubble level deal. When I got out there, I realized one of the biggest problems, and when I say out there with the military doing training, nobody had a bubble level anywhere. And so when I got on the guns with the guys and we're out there shooting, I can remember, I won't go into which groups it were. We were up in Utah, and I had two groups sharing in the time space up there. And I'm standing over about 20 yards away working with some other guys, and same group, but just a different set of them. I hear a wind call. Well, the wind's straight bull. There is zero winds going on right now. So I hear this guy give this guy a wind call, and we're shooting like 600-700 meters somewhere in there. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing? He said, oh, that's how much correction we have to give in wind call to get a hit. And I said, stop. So I walked over there, got behind the guy, and I told him, I could see standing behind him that his turrets were canted like this.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, straight, come right, stop. That's level, pull the trigger, no wind. Boom, and he hit the target. And he said, my reticle's canted inside my scope. And I've seen this happen about 3 or 4 times. So I was like, no, it's not. I said, hang on. So I pulled his gun up off of him and looked through it, and I said, no, it's not. And so I've had this with some really good high-level instructors that are friends of mine. They thought it was canted in a very mountainous type terrain, nothing flat. And even the data scope from Night Force, it has a basically a leveling system in it.
Good.
And it's really cool. And so I got on the scope doing testing up in Orofino, and it's a big sloped range, and I shoot all the time, and I've been doing this 20 years, been doing this for, probably 50 years on guns and scopes, shoot a lot. I get on the side of this mountain, and I pull my reticles into what I think is level, and I see this red light come on, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I'm looking over there at the light, and I say, oh, that's a level deal. So I turn, and it went off, and I was like, okay, and I look at my deal, and I was like, that looks canted. So I just took my phone out, pulled up my little bubble deal, checked it, put it on there, and they said, yeah, it's calibrated. I said, okay, cool. Did my deal anyway. And it's like, oh, crap, that is good. I would have missed, guaranteed, every time. So what I realized before, and that was before my bubble levels. No, I'm sorry, that was way after my bubble levels. But even though I shot all the time, I realized in certain terrains, it's really hard to perceive what is off. Even Brian Lentz will tell you, if you don't use my bubble levels, and it's not just mine, it's the fact that most bubble levels until after mine only told you if he's level or not, didn't tell you that you use 5 degrees off.
Right.
If you're 5 degrees off, you can still correct for that. So it's very deterministic what the correction is, and it's easy per mil that you're shooting for elevation. So we won't go into that now, but it's a unique tool that allows you to still be able to hit the target when you're canted. The problem is most people don't know the reason they miss on their wind call is because they're canted. And so there's most of the military groups in the world right now are using my bubble level. And a group called me up. We won't go into the actual shot. A group called me up and said, hey, we made this shot, blah, blah, blah. And they had 2 snipers working together. And they said, we got a question. And we had worked with them on this shot to get ready for it for a long time. In training, I say a long time, like 8 months, come out to the house several times. They were working dope together on a whole bunch of targets all the time, and they were all good. And the first guy shoots, and he hits low right of the target. And when the second, or as soon as the bullet impacts, I think it's like 14 seconds later. All right, so as soon as the bullet impacts, both guns go off. So you got the first guy taking a shot. This guy's set up and ready. He's bubbled up. They went. I taught all these guys when they went through sniper school, so I know this guy. I know him well. I know he bubbled up. This other guy, he took the shot, recoil, 50 cal, pulls off, comes back down, trying to see splash, trying to get everything going. And they said, Todd, the next shot hit him, and one of the bullets hit 1.7 mils left. I said he was canted. I can't tell you which one was canted, but I know what I see.
Yeah.
Under recoil, second shot. Now, we don't find, used to all the time, I'd be walking up down the line and be like, hey, come right. Good, you're level now. And I'd just keep moving. And it's like, man, it's wrong. It looks bad. And I'm like, I know. See how it looks. Kind of get that fixed in your mind before I had the bubble levels. And once we had the bubble levels, I just say, hey, bubble up. And so bubble up became terminology. It was like, hey, this is a real deal now. Most of the wind calls that we missed were due to, I remember Pete Gould talking. He said he was embarrassed what they put out in range 37 level 1 sniper course for SF, and how many guys failed because they didn't have the capability of understanding where those misses come from. And so it was one of those deals that having a bubble is imperative at long range.
Yeah.
Brian Litz is one of the biggest people on. Put any bubble on. He doesn't care. But get a bubble on your gun if you're going to shoot long range. So once you get out to distance, it's crazy the amount of miss that you can have just to not be in bubble up. Now, most of the military guys all over the world use my bubble, and they're bubbling up for that first shot. Now what I see is a problem. It used to be one of my number one problems, was not having a bubble on the gun and being off. Now it's second shot corrections. So they shoot, and under recoil, they never go back and check their bubble. And so it's like they're bubbled up, they shoot, slightly miss on the wind call. They come back on, get back on target. They don't check their bubble, they shoot, and they hit the exact same spot. But it's because they canted the reticle this time. And it's so minute, they don't see it. So even Brian Litz says 2.5 degrees you can't even see with a human eye out in the real world. In here, on a piece of paper you can, but not outside. So it's one of the biggest things I think that we've really brought into the market, and we just throw it out. Personally, even it's just like, yeah, this is just a tool you need to have, guys. So I was up there in Utah, and we got them fixed, and it's like, hey, y'all fight at night, so obviously you need something you see at night. So I went down the road chasing tritium bubble levels. Well, with the military backing, everybody pushing the government to allow me to use tritium, and the amount of tritium that I wanted in the bubble levels created a problem with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So there was like, no, this cowboy is not having this much tritium in his gun safe. And so that became a big problem. And then finally, it got high enough that the government forced them into allowing me to do it. But like, the government does, they said, okay, we'll give him a license. It costs him $17,000 a year. And then we can go in and inspect his stuff, So nobody, since they said okay, all the guys that wanted me to get the license or wanted me to get the access to be able to have the tritium, they couldn't say anything now. He was like, okay, they said okay, so do you want to do it? I was like, no, I'm going to go in debt on this thing big time. I ain't going to make that kind of money off this. So we come up with, Ronnie Wright come up with another way of eliminating. We were able to use some tritium for a bit.
Yeah.
And then.
And how'd it work?
Oh, it worked great. It's
Beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah.
But then Ronnie Wright come up with this little cover that gave us the ability to have an electronic light that shines through. Awesome, easy, works awesome. Works great. I don't have to deal with the tritium, all the legalities and all that kind of stuff. So, but that is something. It really doesn't matter if you're shooting out to 400. Don't worry about it. If you're shooting distance, you really. It's cheap. It doesn't cost anything. Buy one.
And what do you consider a distance? Anything transonic range or?
No, I would say bubble wise, anything over 500, you could start missing target. And you can get into the math a little bit more and go through it, but we got a lot of stuff to cover. But yeah, if you're going to shoot anything that is distance 500 and beyond, you need a bubble level on your system. So, it's a good point. There's a lot of people like, what's long range to you? And it's like, that's not a good question. It's what is long range to the weapon system that you're using? So to me, transonic, the start Mach 1.2 is not long range, but that's stuff that is high hit probability and you should own. We get into long range, into trans, and into sub, and then there's a lot more variables that come involved or become involved in those areas, so that you have to have the proper twist rate, if the bullet's going to remain stable. There's tons of stuff. That's where headwinds and tailwinds come into effect. So if you have a 30-mile-an-hour headwind and tailwind at 600, time of flight's really not that much different that it's going to create a miss. You're going to have a slight adjustment, but it's not, even if you don't adjust, you're probably not going to have a miss that distance, even in a 30-mile-an-hour headwind, because it doesn't change the time of flight enough. But if you push out to 1200, you've got a problem. So you have to know, one of the big things that we always talk about is know what matters and know when it matters. So sometimes somebody says, yeah, but you got to watch cosines and winds. Like, yeah, I got it. You're 100% right at a certain distance. At 300, I don't care. I'll aim right edge. I'm going to hit everything. And I heard a guy down on the floor talking about a new saying that came up. It's what we taught, but now it's just become into a new deal. It's called windmilling. Instead of milling a target, they windmill the target. So you put the trimmer reticle and the crosshairs on the right side, and they count how many wind dots that they have. So if the wind's blowing 10-mile-an-hour, but they got 20-mile-an-hour worth of wind dots, pull the trigger, brother, you're good.
Yeah.
You ain't got to think about it. So it's common sense stuff. So they actually mill the target for wind capacity on the target. So we do that all the time, but I'd never heard it called wind milling. So it was kind of funny yesterday when I heard that for the first time. So the wind dots were a huge deal. All right, when we developed the trimmer reticles, like we talked about earlier with all the calculators and the quick wind formulas, the quick wind formula really took the boys into a fast area or faster area to where they could actually engage a lot more quickly. But still, they were using mills. And when winds gust, that's why I started pushing Wind 1 and Wind 2. A-Trag didn't have that. It had Wind 1. When we put it in the Kestrel A-Trag, I made sure we had the Wind 1 and Wind 2. And that's like low wind, high wind, so you can see your average. And there's other ways that you can use it. But usually you had one, you had to kind of guess what it might be. Otherwise, it could be not your low wind and high wind, but your stable wind to your gust or whatever, however you want to use it. And then we pushed into the wind dots to where we didn't have to do math anymore. It's like all the math you're doing, you're going to have to do anyway. It's like whatever your wind value is and your cosine, you're going to do that to get a full crosswind component. Done. It's going to happen. So if you got a 20-mile-an-hour wind from 1 o'clock, it's 10-mile-an-hour. All right, so for your 308 and a trimmer, that's 2.5 wind dots. Full trigger, it's that easy. Wind call's over. People mess up. Used to, bubble levels or or people not having bubble levels created a lot of the wind misses, left, right, horizontal misses. But then you get into the biggest problem we see now is cosines. So cosines are something that, they're standard. They're all over. They never change. All right, so 1 o'clock or 12:30, but it's going to be quarter value 1 o'clock. And then 130's I can't believe I just forgot that number. 0.701? No. Yes. So, and then 0.866. All right, once you get over 2 o'clock, and that just rotates all the way around. All right, so, but we don't do those numbers when we're shooting. You know how it is. We lay it on the ground. I need a shotgun now.
Yeah.
So we came up with something that was very tactile for the guys and something that the guys could understand. So you put your thumb on the target, and then if the wind's coming from the right. So you put your thumb on the target in the back of the hand, that's quarter value. Move it again, that's half value. Move it again, that's 3/4 value. And then same thing with wind blowing from your back. You don't turn around and you do this. Where's the wind blowing to? Wind's blowing straight up here at the 11 o'clock. So I put it up here. I go quarter value, half value. Half value, what is it? Hold my Kestrel up. That's 18-mile-an-hour. So we teach with the Kestrel, don't use the Kestrel. Make a guess, and then use the Kestrel. You'll calibrate your brain. So if you always just look at a Kestrel, your brain never learns off that to feel wind. So
it's like doing visual range estimation without your rangefinder.
Yeah.
Learn how to look at distances and know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times I'll have the guys like, all right, everybody get out of the truck. What's the wind doing? They're going, 15. Other guys saying 24. And if we do this before we ever look at the Kestrel, just hold it up, take a guess, and then look at it. By the end of the week, they'll get out of the truck and go 22. Nope, it's 21. They're getting that good that quick.
Good, yeah.
It's just training your brain. Your brain's quick enough. It can do it if you learn how to teach it. So, but the wind dots really were phenomenal, and I didn't understand what I was doing. I was actually setting up to build a better wind calling reticle, but more of a ballistic type reticle at the time. But it was set up based on meals. But I was building the wind reticle, so I built a 308 or ballistics off of 308. Built the trimmer too, and then I said, okay, let's see how far it's off. Throw a 300 Win Mag on. So I built all the ballistics for a 300 Win Mag and plotted them back down. And I was looking at it, and I was like, damn it. This is taking hours and hours and, tools, measuring stuff on this big sheet of paper and hand drawing all this stuff. And I thought, man, I went back into my Kestrel and plugged in the wrong gun. I did the 308 again. And so I'd done all this work, and I thought, I cannot believe I didn't check it. And it's because I drew it, but I didn't overlay it on the previous drawing. And so I drew it all out, and I got it all done, and I put it over here, and they matched perfectly. And I was like, gosh. And then it got me thinking. I said, okay, hang on. I'm going to do a 5.56. And they were off. And then I was like, okay, they're a little bit off. That's good. And then I did a 338, and they were a little bit off. And I was like, hang on. The wind dots are 4-mile-an-hour on a 190 grain, but the 220 grain, they're not. They're 5-mile-an-hour. and it's a 4 mile an hour wind dot on a 308, and probably 6.5 depending on the velocity that you're pushing, but it's a 3 mile an hour wind dot. So I mean, you can calibrate it. Well, the reason you can calibrate, so I'm a country boy. So the reason you can calibrate it is because it's based on mil of drop. And so now it's like, wait, crap, now you can calibrate it so the same reticle can work off everything. So we were learning as we was going in the design process. And so honestly, to me, it's like Brian Litt said, it's the only thing we've done, it's a generational leap over the last 50 years for reticles.
It is.
It looks busy for some people. You know, I developed the trimmer too. We talked a little bit earlier about it, and the guys that wanted less loved it. The guys that were already eat up with the 59 wanted all the 59 in the trimmer 2, and that's what the trimmer 3 is. So we put all the we basically put the wind dots in a 59, except I erased the lines underneath the secondary stadium lines, the vertical lines, and erased all them just to get rid of the clutter, and then put the wind dots under there. And it's still the most popular reticle. We come out with the trimmer 5 just to get rid of the 12-inch drill, because if you're not killing people, you really don't need that. And the only reason we hid all that forever, if I told the military or the government, I've built this reticle to kill people, it'd become ITAR immediately. And then every O-ring in the scope would be ITAR. And ITAR gets stupid. So I just kept it quiet. It's 12-inch. And hid how to use it so other foreign units can get a hold of it or understand it.
Yeah.
So, but it's been out long enough, and there's enough out on it, so people knows how it works.
So then, what would you say what do you think the biggest advancement is outside of the weapon system that's helped kind of advance long-range marksmanship? First
thing coming to my mind is laser rangefinders. Affordable, good quality laser rangefinders, and I'm going to say, and I don't mind pushing them. We don't get paid any money from Leica. Amazing, wonderful. Yeah. You get into Vectronics, you can't get a better laser rangefinder in Vectronics. I mean, that Safran stuff is off the hook. They're phenomenal. They're military grade. They're expensive. You know, so it's one of those things that they're awesome. You get into Leica, or when I'm talking about Vectronics stuff, you can't get better. They're wonderful, but it may cost you $9,000 to own one of them. You know, Plurf 25s, you played with the Plurf 10s, all that stuff. And then you get into Leica. Well, Leica has a little bitty small handheld 1600s, 2200s, 2000, you know, on and on and on. Small one, single monocular laser rangefinder. They're fabulous. It's insane, and their binos are awesome. So there's a lot of real high-end quality laser rangefinders out on the market today. People need to understand you need to know where that laser is hitting. So you need to kind of calibrate. Not all companies, and I just say this, and people need to be aware, because we're all kind of the same way. We go, hey, let me try this one because it's cheaper. And then you go out there and you laser target and you go, oh, it's 330 meters. And the target's a vehicle or something, a rock. It's huge. Yeah, you hit it. Then you aim at a coyote, and it goes, oh, it's 670. And you shoot and you miss. Well, if you find out where that laser is really impacting, the target may be in 630. And you went right over the top of it. Of course, what do we blame? We made a bad shot. Something with the dope was off, whatever. But I always teach my guys, you laser it 3 times, meaning you laser it twice. All right, if it gives you the same number twice, move off of it like maybe 10 feet left and lays again. If you get the same number, something's wrong. I'll be like off and to the left where I know it's going to read further if it doesn't hit that target. If it's a big E-top standing up, if I go off, should read 20 yards further back. If it gives me the same number, I never hit it with the first 2. So people need to understand laser management and how to use the laser. I never laser once a pull trigger, ever. And unless it's like it's a time window deal and I ain't got time. And so it's like I get one shot at this, I'm going to do it and move on to it. So, and usually I'm lasering at the feet of the animal at that time. I may hit him, I may hit his foot, I may hit 5 yards close, I'll still be all right. So, and then, you know, long range shooting, you have time to do multiple lasers and stuff. And people need to understand when somebody says, hey, I've got a 1200 meter laser rangefinder, it's probably good to 800. You know, it'll hit 1200 on a water tower here in town somewhere, very highly reflective stuff. But it's not going to hit a coyote at 1200.
Right.
So it's not going to work. But people always, they tout everybody's stuff. My deal is, it is what it is. Go out and test it, play with it, understand what you're buying. I remember I walked into a team room and they had a ton of lasers. We will not go into which ones. And I said, what are you doing buying that? He said, Todd, they were cheap, man. We could, everybody on the team could have one. And I said, that won't read my pickup truck at 600. We don't need lasers to 600. We do 12-inch drill.
Right.
You'll never pick up a laser out to 600. And I said, that won't read at 1,000. And they said, yeah, I know. I said, you know what you did? You sold all your money off now, so when you can go to the boss and you tell him and say, hey, we need some more money for laser rangefinders. We want to burn that credit card again. He'll be like, no, you just bought lasers, 3 months ago. We're not doing that one again. So we've worked through and with another government entity that does stuff, let's say for education purposes. They would work with me, and I would pick up the best equipment in the world. And sometimes it wasn't the most expensive, but it was something that they needed to be looking at. Teach them how to use it. Teach them why it would fulfill the job that they're looking for it to fulfill, and not waste money. And so then we would give that product to them with the training, and it would never cost them. And it was basically to teach them how to look at product. Don't go cheap. Go what you need, but you don't have to spend the crazy amounts. And this was everything, scopes and lasers and everything. But
So like a full suite.
yeah, I mean, we didn't get into you know how the deal is with weapon systems.
Yeah.
So we didn't get into weapon systems or ammo so much. I think later on in life we have in our career. I mean, you get into the SO project, same thing, same companies. I say companies, same government entity that there's a project for. But there's a lot of stuff like that. It's just pushing knowledge and teaching the guys how to not waste money and making the right choices. But there's so much good product out there. And then again, what I really want to make sure the guys understand, just because you buy a affordable scope doesn't mean it's going to be good. Doesn't mean it's going to be bad. Me and Kobe tested out, and I won't name the company, but me and Kobe tested out a scope that was phenomenal this year. It was a very affordable scope. And when I say very affordable, I mean very affordable. We haven't done a full test, but it was a very good scope. I can remember way back in the day, Bushnell sent me a scope. And I don't mind saying the name because I don't take money from them. They sent me a scope, and I was like, yeah, no, I hate it. And made a whole list of everything I hated on it. And I think it was about 6 months later, they sent me a new scope back with everything fixed. And this was an old HDMR. And so they sent it out to me, and I know what it takes to make that turnaround, that kind of deal. So I was like,
That's a lot.
Super impressed.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And everything fixed. So I then made another whole list of everything that I wanted changed on it. And I said, guys, this is awesome. All I ask from you is, like, give me a good price so my guys, can afford them that come through the classes. And we can sell them to the guys through the classes and not make any money. It was just like straight up, here's a deal. This is what they cost because you're coming through the class. But we made the next one, and that became the XLR or whatever the next version was of Bushnell at the time. And they put our reticles in it, but it was phenomenal. Now, the next generation was the longer range version. The HDMR, they didn't want to make the changes to because it was good quality scope, but it's a super good price. We even used them in the school, and I told them, I said, initially, it was like, we'll never push this to the military. Well, we didn't, but when the military came in, because they had bought some and used some, one military group was like, hey, we want to do our own scope test, and they did the testing, and the normal scope company that you would think would win that during that time, it wasn't Night Force, because Night Force wasn't the predominant leader in the industry.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so that part of the group picked that, and the group that came out to the house to do the testing picked the Bushnell. I said, I can't believe y'all picked a Bushnell. I know they're good, but I never thought it would be allowed, to have. But they were very good scopes. Currently I don't use a lot of them now because we do use the Night Force stuff a bunch, and they're on all of our weapon systems. And so
They're a great company.
I
remember back in the day, like one of my first times seeing Night Force, I can't remember what year it was. It was a hot minute ago. They were using scope bodies, and they were pounding nails through a 2x4 with it.
in their demos.
Yeah, and then they were putting it back on the gun, and they were still grouping.
Yeah, so I go up to them and to go through the facility and watch everything. So I go in there, and they've got these rubber mallets at every table, and we've got this big culminator, and the guy's just beating and beating and beating, and he puts it in the culminator, and he dials it, and he checks it, he takes it out, and he beats it and beats it and beats it. And I'm like, surely this is like 1 out of 100 scopes go through this whole process, right? You're not going to do this to everything. And so I'm like, all right, what's going on? And I said, now this is just process, goes here, 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 and every one of them's just beating the piss out of this scope. And it's just a line of them going through. And I'm like, I'm going to buy 20 scopes. Can y'all skip this process on mine?
Yeah.
And it continues all the way down through every deal. Even the little girl in the shipping room takes it out and looks through it and looks for anything that may have disconnected off the sidewalls or wherever, anywhere, not sidewalls, they'd kill me if I said that. But inside the tube, a little flake of dirt or something dropped loose and landed on the glass. And she may find 2 or 3 a week or something, but the quality control is unreal. So I'm going through watching everything. And I'm kind of bored with this one area because it's something that's a little deep into it that you need to be on microscopes and all this. And I can't really see what they're doing. They're just telling me about it. And there's a rack of scopes sitting here. There's 7 scopes with this rolling rack. And I was just trying to get out of that room because there's some cool stuff going on in the next room. And I was like, hey, where are these going? I'm just anticipating going over there and they'd move the truck train along. And they said, oh, these are rejects. And I said, in the country boy, I'm thinking half price, right? So I said, all right, shit, we're going to check this out. So I grabbed one immediately, and I looked at it, and I'm trying to find one. It's straight, it's level. You know, there's clicks. It's got turrets on it, and it's got glass still in it. What's the deal? I figured he got beat up back there somewhere. So I'm looking at everything, and I'm going like, okay, I can't find it. What's wrong? And then he flipped over the card. He said, all right, back it out to the lowest power. Look up at 2 o'clock. There's a speck of dirt at the very outside corner. And so I turn it all the way back, you know, all the way down to 5 power, looked up, looked at the top right corner, 2 o'clock, there was a tiniest little speck of dirt. I'd probably never seen it if I owned the scope for the rest of my life. I'd have never shot at 5 power in the first place. So I'd have never seen that. And of course, right now I'm real excited. And I'm like, all right, what can I buy this one for? And I'm thinking I'm buying all 7 of these, you know, at half price. And they said, oh, that'll never leave the factory. And I said, you're kidding. I've shot scopes that look like they went mudding through the middle of them. You know, ink everywhere, shit falling off of it, off the reticle. So, and I'm like, you're kidding me. You're going to tear it. They said, yeah, it costs about $750 to get that out of there. And I said, why don't you just sell it to me then? And he said, it ain't leaving. And he said, we don't allow it.
I love it.
They're probably, and we work with tons of companies.
Where's their factory located at?
Orphan, you know, Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah. So we work with a ton of companies. I've never worked with a company that was above where Not Force is. I've worked with some guys that are pretty much on par with the way the quality assurance that Not Force gives you, but I've never seen anybody that is above them. So I know when I buy 40 scopes a year, they sell them to me at a good price, and we use them because it's like free R&D money for them because I got 7,000 rounds going through them each week. And then, you know, after a year, the boys that are going through the class can pick one up, same price I paid for it, and it's a nice price scope for him, and it's out the door, but it's R&D money for them, which they didn't lose any money. They didn't pay anybody. So then I order scopes, and I pay them, and I get them in, and we go through the same process all over again, you know. So it's I guess I'd have to go back and look how many years I've been doing this, especially with the buying scopes, but I'm thinking it's at least 5 to 6 that we've been buying 40 scopes a year from them. And to be honest, out of the 250 plus scopes probably that have been through there, being 6 years at 40 scopes, I may have had 1 or 2 scopes that I sent back that may have ended up having a problem. I can remember what the problem was now. There was a new employee that was putting a little bit too much glue on one screw, and it would that would come off under the whack stuff, and it would pop off on the glass, and it looked like there was a water droplet in the glass.
Okay.
And all it was too much glue on that one screw. But immediately they looked at the serial number and they said, he did it. So they knew immediately what was going on. So, but I mean, that's the problems that we have is zero. Now I've been through with other companies before Not Force where I had to put vice grips on the parallax knob to actually turn it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I had the same company that as under recoil, the parallax knob would fall off. You'd have to grab it in the dirt and stick it back on to be able to use it. So, and that was just it didn't start out that way, but that became that way over 3 years of use. So we've worked with a lot of different scope companies. Again, won't go through some names, but parallax issues that would not focus past 750. And they were a great company, and they made some micro changes and screwed their reputation up. It's real easy to lose a reputation. Tracking, guys, please do your track. We're not talking box reels. We're talking, actual real tracking drills. Dial up 10 mils. But this is one of the biggest problems that we see. They get a cat's target, and I saw this on the internet the other day. I wanted to say something. I didn't want to start up a shit storm. I wanted to, actually, but I didn't have time.
You didn't have time.
I wanted to. But the guy was like, oh, yeah, my reticle's off. It's at 10 mil line, it's at 10.3, the lines are. And I was like, is your board perfectly up and down when you laser back? Because I know on the cat's target it says 100 meters or 100 yards. How do you know you're there? Did you actually laser it, or did you have a string drawn, or did you get somebody to come out and measure it? And so I know what happened.
Is the stand level?
He put a laser on it and said, hey, we're here, and he stood this thing up. It may have been leaning back a little bit more, so a 10 mils in your reticle would actually measure like 10.3, really easy. If he got it perfectly up and put a plumb bottom on it and got it perfect left and right, very easily you could be like half meter back.
Yeah.
And these things are plus minus one, you know that. So you could be half meter back, and now you're off again. So this is where, in the cat's target, and Dennis Samet was the one that invented the cat's target, so from Horace, he wanted to be able to train long range at 100. And how to use his reticle. So you would always aim at the little box on the bottom and say, all right, hold 6 mils up and 3 mils right. So you would hold 6 mils up and 3 mils right and shoot, and you better hit this little dot that you couldn't see. So some of them were visible, some of them were invisible, basically, or non-transparent, to where you couldn't see what you was aiming at. It's like a test that you'd shoot. And I told him, dude, this isn't a long-range training tool. Long ranges win. You can't do win at 100. So, but it's a fantastic calibration tool. So for scopes, we can actually know what we can dial and not, and everybody can do it. Unfortunately, every backyard scientist thinks his scope doesn't track now.
Right.
So Night Force has a problem with a lot of the guys running through, taking a cat's target, setting up this system in their backyard, and then coming back screaming, yeah, my scope doesn't track, because he set it up wrong. All right, so because of so many guys that claim there was a problem, they have a culminator set up to where with a camera, you can see the serial number, it's yours, and you can see through your scope. And when they put it on and line it up and dial 10 mils, it's 10 mils exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't argue anymore.
Nope.
It's like, okay, send me that scope back. So it's one of those things that there's too many people out there that do it wrong, and it's easy to do it wrong. So what I tell everybody is, I don't care if your deal's lean back a little bit. I don't care if you're 100 meters. What I care about is 10 mils in your reticle matches 10 mils on the target. It's real easy setup. So you just lay down, put your crosshairs at the 10 mil line. If the 10 mil line isn't touching that little black dot, move forward or backwards until it does. And once you have 10 mils in your reticle matching 10 mils on the target, when you dial 10 mils, you will get 10 mils of mil rating and adjustment. Yeah. So with that, now we get knowledge. Now guys can actually test stuff. And it's a real quick tool. We used to tell guys all the time in the field, when you're truing, we shoot at 100. We go out to range. You shoot at 800 meters, first round right out of the box. You've been there. So when we shoot, it's like, what's your hold? 9 mils. Dial 9 mils. If you don't hit the same spot with 9 mils dialing that you did with 9 mils a hole, your scope ain't tracking. So with some scopes that we used to shoot that weren't good quality, I would have a holding gun and a dialing gun. So, and then Brian Litz comes up with this sight scale factor, whatever, to where you can say if your scope dials 1.05 when you dial 1, all right, so it's like that, it'll factor it in, give you the correct. I was like, quit buying sucky scopes. A ballistic engine shouldn't be able to fix your fucked up scope.
Correct.
So I was adamant about, I hated that. You see, it was a good tool for him. I mean, he's a scientist. He understands what the problem is. I was like, quit buying shitty scopes. Quit. Yeah. Buy good stuff. And I dealt with them, and that's why we teach people, you have a dialing gun and a holding gun. And when you deal with those scopes. And, you're going to have a different velocity. You're going to have different velocity in between the two to give you the corrected hold. So it is what it is, but you need to track. You need to make sure your scope tracks. Do a holding, hit. If it hits with 8 mils, dial 8 mils. If you don't hit the same spot or within the noise of the same spot that your gun's capable of shooting, you have a tracking issue with that scope.
Yeah, and then I constantly run into people that have it backwards. They will buy a super expensive weapon, rifle, and then they will put cheap ammo and they'll put cheap glass on it.
Yeah, because they're out of money.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you've got it backwards. Buy a decent rifle.
Because it'll outshoot you anyway.
Yeah, buy a decent rifle, put amazing glass on it, and buy good ammo. And put good ammo, good glass.
Well, and I tell everybody the same thing, but there's 3 components here. One, if I'm going to shoot long range, long range, you have to have quality ammo, period. You can't get around that, all right? If you're going to shoot anything, you have to have a good scope, period. I don't care. You can get by with some cheap scopes if you're not pushing out to real distance. But if I'm shooting 600 meters in, I can get by with a affordable scope that still has to be quality. Otherwise, you're going to really hate your day where your parallax is messed up, your eyes are getting kind of get that headache in the back of your head. It's just shitty glass. It's horrible. Weapon systems today, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, are phenomenal in that I can buy $800 gun that shoots as good as my $6,000 Surgeon. So it just is what it is today. I'm a huge Barrett fan, and so it's there's some of the best guns. I don't know of the better gun on the market than the Barrett for 300 Norman, that kind of stuff. And you can shoot all kinds of good gas guns today. There's tons of them, LaRue's, Seekins, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, there's good products out there. So anyway, well, we got more stuff to do here at SHOT Show. So Todd, thank you so much for sitting down. I can't tell you, man, like I was talking to Cato on the way over here. When we were coming back up, and I'm like, I love this conversation and like having a good personal relationship with you over the years. And then I value this type of interaction way more than like if somebody was like, oh, do you want to interview a celebrity, or do you want to interview a professional athlete, or do you want to? No, I want to sit down with Todd Hodnett and nerd out about fucking ballistics.
And we could do this another 3 hours
for sure. Easy.
And let's do that sometime.
Yeah, we will.
Let's get together.
Yeah, I would definitely want to come down, and we're gonna get Colby. He's napping right now, but we're gonna get him down on the podcast and do an interview with him and talk to him, and we'd love to come down to Texas.
Yeah, you passing through the area, stop by, and I mean we're always got a military class in doing training, and so y'all come in, hang out, shoot with me, let them go do the deal, and you can put him on the podcast later.
Yeah, love to do that.
All right, man. Brian,
thank you so much.
Enjoyed it, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Yep, have a good one.